Hi, this is Dr. Cairns with a brief lecture on how managing teams in conflict affects our Christian worldview and vice versa. Influenced by the work of Dr. Clayton Christensen, Dr. Tuning, and Reverend Timothy Keller, we examine how Scripture applies to helping us develop competencies in group processes, communication, conflict resolution, and of course, leadership. So this week you're going to be reading chapters concerning power in groups and a central dynamic, and what you're going to be looking at are various forms of power, and I have three pictured here. One is in terms of dominance, and that's power over people, that we get our power because people have less power, so we take power from them. And then I have a picture of Ben Franklin, who said an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And so power from is when we resist those who may be trying to dominate us or exercise power over us. And then we're looking at empowerment, and that's giving power and authority to individuals. And I like the story found in Genesis of Joseph. And if you'd like to read a little bit about power and the sources of power, I would encourage you to go check that out in the book of Genesis, chapter 42. It's one of my favorite passages because it really does show the dynamic of power over individuals and how influence can be used, which is at the source of all power.
We got this new supervisor down at the post office. He's working behind this glass. I know they're talking about me. They're gonna transfer me, I know it. 2 hours, give me 2 hours.
It's not gonna happen.
All right, all right, all right, you go ahead. You go ahead, you keep it secret. But you remember this, when you control the mail, you control information.
I like that brief clip from Seinfeld episode depicted by Newman, that information is what it's all about, and controlling it. It's also important that you have the right information. So you can control information. You can also be one that withholds it. You can be one that's forthcoming with it. You could be deceptive with it. There's a variety of different ways to engage in using information. And then we look at expertise. Are you an expert in something? And if you are, you have power because people need your expertise. And then we examine the carrot and the stick. That's right, rewards and punishment. Are you in a position where you can reward people for their behavior, or can you punish them for your behavior? If you are, you have power. And then depicted here, we have a mother duck with her ducklings, and in your text it talks about charisma when it comes to personal qualities of leadership, and giving the indication, well, looking at this mother duck, it doesn't appear like there's a lot of charisma, but there's a whole lot of following going on. Let me play for you a brief video clip from Jim Collins, author of Good to Great, and hear what he has to say about charisma.
One thing we have to be very clear on is that leadership is not personality. Some leaders do have charisma, but a lot of the very best leaders that we studied in the course of history had what I might call a charisma bypass. And they are not people who would jump across a table at you. Some of them can be almost strange in their behavior. Some of them can be magnetic in their behavior. Some of them can be harsh and abrasive in their behaviors. And when you look at all that, you say, well, wait a minute, leadership is not personality. And in fact, if you're highly charismatic, that's not necessarily a positive. Because the critical thing we found about how people engage with a leader is not about this external stuff. That's really pretty irrelevant. It has to do with the answer to a simple question. Why are you in it? Are you fundamentally doing something that's about you? Or are you trying to build something great, to accomplish something great, to build great products, or whether to build a great company, or to change a bunch of kids' lives in a school, or to accomplish a mission in Afghanistan? I mean, if it's fundamentally about you as a leader, why should anybody give themselves over to what you're trying to do? But if it's fundamentally that you're channeling your ego into a cause or a company or a set of work or something that you're trying to accomplish that is not about you, that's when people will sign up.
Well, there you have it. Charisma is not all that it's cracked up to be. All right, and lastly, as we look at resources of power, we look at legitimate authority. And I have depicted here a chain link fence, and you can see that you're only as good as your weakest link. And so wherever that authority comes from, you need to make sure that as it flows from top to bottom or bottom to top, that there are no weak links. I want to talk a little bit about conflict management. And conflict management is something you're going to focus on a lot throughout your career, either as an employee or as an employer or a manager or a leader. And I have a gear shift here and kind of liken it to when we first face conflict. What are our reactions? And you also have a conflict management style of your own. And I selected this probably because when the first thing that happens, generally we want to avoid conflict. And then we're trying to see, well, can we accommodate people within the realm of the issues? And then can we find compromise? And then when we really get into higher gear, can we collaborate to come up and solve complex issues? And if that fails, then maybe we go into reverse of competing as a last resort. And that's something that we need to consider. And obviously you can't go from 4 to competing very easily without destroying the transmission. And so that's why I have it kind of listed that way as competition being the last resort. And then recognize really though all these styles are necessary for resolving conflict. So maybe I go from and jump into accommodating or try to get started in compromising ahead of time. But everything that's involved operates within a context. So I may need to have competition be my first one, depending upon what that context is. And I like what we find in Proverbs chapter 15, where it really kind of outlines for us how we should approach, I think, conflict. And that is recognizing that a gentle answer will deflect anger. But if we're harsh with our words, we're likely to stir up tempers. And then if our tongue is wise, the things that we say, and people are going to listen to, and it'll be appealing. And I really like this part here where the mouth of a fool belches out foolishness. And we've probably seen and experienced it ourselves where we opened the mouth and inserted foot first. And then recognize lastly that the Lord is watching everywhere, and he's keeping an eye on both the evil and the good. So we close out this week with our weekly chronicle, remembering that we daily make mention of you, that God would amaze you this semester in some aspect of your life, whatever you need breakthrough for, whether that's personally, professionally, spiritually, or all of the above. This week's forum discussion will take you into an analysis of leading through a major crisis, of an interview with Rear Admiral Thad Allen, and he was the head of the Coast Guard when I was actually at Homeland Security, and that organization, the Coast Guard is really a very effective organization, and his leadership was necessary to help lead out of the efforts of Hurricane Katrina. So chapters 9 and 10 complete the quiz. This is from the 8th edition, so just look at what the chapter titles are if you have a later or an earlier edition. And then also I offer the faith application lecture and a quiz. You'll have until week 8 to finish that, but that quiz is up and running now this week. And then be sure to complete the idea survey, as well as you have your 12 Angry Men case study paper due week 8. So if you have any questions or would like to talk to me face-to-face, my weekly virtual office hours, Tuesday, noon to 1, you can reach me there, contact me via my email or my cell. Have a blessed week. I'll see you in the virtual classroom.